My name is Ryan Banks, and I'm the Senior Director of Behavioral Health at Encompass Community Supports, formerly known as Rappahannock-Rapidan Community Services. We were told that the name change was to shorten it and make us more easily recognizable in the community, but I'm not so sure. I'm thrilled to be welcoming you to our second Stand Up for Mental Health showcase. I can't remember exactly when the first one was. It was either last month or 2 years ago. Time's weird. Nonetheless, I hope everyone sits back, relaxes, and enjoys themselves this evening. Stand Up for Mental Health is a program that teaches stand-up comedy to people with mental health issues as a way of building self-esteem and fighting public stigma. People with mental health issues are always being told what they can't do. In this show, you'll see what they can do. Stand Up for Mental Health has programs across Canada, the US, and Australia, and was featured in the Voice award-winning documentary, Cracking Up. And now let me introduce the founder of the program. David Granirer is both a counselor and a stand-up comic. He discovered personal growth at 18 and made it his life goal by the age 50 to move out of his parents' basement. His favorite pastime is listening spellbound to self-hypnosis tapes in his car, which explains why no one will sell him auto insurance. His counseling business is going so well that last year he came dangerously close to quitting his job at 7-Eleven. He is also a sought-after keynote speaker, sought after by corporations, nonprofit organizations, and his creditors. He is the recipient of a Champion of Mental Health Award. These national awards recognize individuals who have made outstanding contributions to the advancement of the mental health agenda in Canada. He also received a Life Unlimited Award from the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance and an Award of Excellence from the National Council for Behavioral Health and a Meritorious Service Medal from the Governor General of Canada for his work using comedy to destigmatize mental illness. David was also recognized as one of the 150 Canadian difference makers in mental health. He is here to be your host and MC for Stand Up for Mental Health. Please welcome David Granirer.
Thank you. Let's give it for Ryan for pronouncing my name right and reading that introduction. Thank you very much. And let's give it up for you folks who came out tonight. Thank you so much. Come on, you can do better than that. Give it up for yourselves. That's better. And we have 4 first-time comics right over there. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, we so appreciate you folks being here. My name is David Granirer, and on top of everything else, I'm a counselor, I'm a stand-up comic, and I also have bipolar and depression. And I found this great way of overcoming depression. Whenever I'm depressed or bummed out, I go find someone who's really happy, and I suck the life force out of them. Thank you. I learned that from my parents. But I also take medication, and it makes my hands shake. But it's not all bad. Last week, our blender broke down. But every time my wife wants me to do chores, the shaking gets worse. And I thought that meant I would never have to do chores again. But she has found chores where it's good to have shaky hands. I am now, thanks to her, I'm now the LeBron James of toilet bowl cleaning. Yeah, I know. And anyone here, are there married folks in the audience? Yeah, oh, okay, great. So you're married? What's the secret? What's your secret to a good marriage? Humor. Hey, right on. Okay. Because I was doing this in one gig, and I said, "What's the secret to a good marriage?" And she's like, "Lying." I mean, her husband was sitting right there. Well, at least she said he was his husband. I mean, who knows? But my secrets to a good marriage are low expectations, no eye contact, and someone who feeds me. Turns out I've been married to my DoorDash driver for the past 3 years. But I have to tell you, my wife is amazing. At our wedding, instead of "I do," she said "you'll do." But she, like I say, she's awesome. And actually, we were doing some role playing, and she said, "Who do you want me to be?" And as a counselor, I just blurt out, "A client who doesn't speak." But so we have, who are the parents? Parents in the audience? Oh, wow, there's no enthusiasm. How many kids? Two. Are they here tonight? Oh, hi, you guys. Hi. Yeah, give the kids a hand. I know they're going, why are you talking to us? But my wife is great, and we have two kids, and we decided that 2 kids was enough. So we had the little chat. She wanted me to have a vasectomy, and I did not want to have a vasectomy. So we did what you're supposed to do in this day and age. We sat down, we deliberated, we heard each other's points of view, and then we compromised, and I had a vasectomy. But, it wasn't that bad. I mean, they froze it. It was over in like 5 minutes. But when I came out of the operating room, there were 5 guys sitting there like this. So just for fun, I walked out and I went, "Oh, God, that hurt." Oh, what fun that was. But so I'm from Canada, and we are a tough nation. Our military gives courses to our pilots on how to withstand torture and hopelessness. They make them run as Democrats in Texas. Just testing out the audience, folks. Just seeing where this is at. Okay, I'll just move off the political jokes. But I live in Vancouver, and they recently put in a new mental health clinic in our area. And I'm thinking, this is amazing. People are going to get help. But there was this residents group. They were outraged. They they didn't want this clinic. They were parading around with signs. These crazy people are going to come into our neighborhood. And do what? Art therapy? I can just see them attacking pedestrians with macaroni and glue sticks. Stay in your homes. There's been an outbreak of collage. And I was joking around with these anti-clinic people, and they're like, "Oh, you think you're so funny, Mr. Stand-Up Comic. Sure, it all starts with finger painting, but pretty soon they'll be killing people with chainsaws." And I'm like, do you realize how much coordination it takes to use a chainsaw? When I'm medicated, I can't even operate a Swiffer. And it's hard to kill someone by mopping them to death. And what these anti-clinic people don't realize is that as people with mental illness, we are way more afraid of them than they are of us. Okay, put it this way. People with mental illness, we commit 5% of all crime. That means normal people commit the other 95%. Have you ever looked at a normal person? They're polite, well-dressed, gainfully employed. They could snap at any moment. When it comes to crime, I feel way safer around some guy who hears voices and thinks he's the supreme ruler of the universe. Put it this way, when you are managing 50 billion galaxies, you are way too busy to steal my car. They're like, "Dude, we travel at light speed. Why would we want your minivan?" And every time someone with a mental illness commits a crime, it always ends up in the media. And the perpetrator, who was mentally ill. If any other group got mentioned every time one of their people committed a crime, we'd be afraid of them too. And the perpetrator, who was a certified plumber, entered the bank disguised as a sewage pump. Said a hostage. The worst part was when he threatened us with his butt crack. Now I have nightmares every time I see the fridge and see 2 grapefruits pushed together. But yeah, but like I say, I'm a counselor, I'm a stand-up comic, and I've mostly, I do a lot of comedy all over the place, and I have mostly had good sets. But occasionally, there's been the occasional bomb. I remember I totally bombed at this one show, and my wife was there, and she was so supportive. She's like, "It's okay, David. I've seen you do way worse than that." And another one of our friends, she was there, "Oh, David, you're so much funnier when you're bombing." So I said, okay, I'll write 45 minutes of crap and do that. She's like, oh, I thought you already did that. Ah. But I also teach a stand-up comedy course all over the place. And the way my class works is that I take people who've had a dream to do stand-up, I turn it into their worst nightmare, and then I counsel them for 13 years. But the best heckle I ever had, I was doing this show, and this woman yells out, she yells out, how much, because I said I was a counselor, right? And she's like, how much do you charge? And I'm like, I don't know, $150 an hour. And she's like, well, my friend over here charges $200. And I'm like, how do you do that? And she's like, because my friend is actually good. I know. So now I'm seeing the friend. But it turned out the friend wasn't nearly as good a therapist as I needed, so I had her charge me $300 an hour. I felt better right away. But there's a lot of misconceptions about antidepressants. And I was at this conference, and this guy's like, antidepressants are an addictive drug. And I'm like, oh, really? Next you'll be telling me there's a gateway drug. They'll motivate me on to more powerful substances like Tums, Lifesavers, Preparation H. But I didn't mind being called an addict, but I mind being called stupid. And with all the great street drugs out there, I would have to be an idiot to choose antidepressants as my high. I can see going to my dealer, yeah, I'm looking for something that takes 4 to 6 weeks to kick in. And no, I don't need to get high. I'll just settle for dry mouth and sexual side effects. I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? Oh, man. But yeah, it's great. It's great working in mental health. It's great being a stand-up comic. It's great being a counselor. And it's like, as a counselor, it's ruined my life. It's ruined the way I interact with people. It's ruined my life. I can no longer feel empathy for someone unless they pay me. And it's really screwed up the way I raised my kids. At Easter, instead of hunting for eggs, they hunted for repressed memories. And every week I would send them off to therapy, and they're like, Daddy, why are you sending us off to therapy when you can treat us? That's so cute. They thought me sending them away for 2 hours was for them. But I was stopped at this roadblock. Like, here's another example. So, stopped at this roadblock, and the cop is like, have you been drinking tonight? So I'm like, how does it feel to ask that question? So I'm in the police van. Yeah, and it's like I say, I go to therapy, and I hate going to therapy. It's just horrible. I just hate it. Like, it's like my therapist says, where would you like to start today? And I'm like, how about at the point where you say the session's over? And yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird being a therapist. Oh, that's the other thing. I know all the tricks, like when a therapist is trying to get you to talk and draw you out. They can't do that to me because I know all of the tricks. I'm like, you're creating a safe space right now. I'm not going to fall for that. But anyhow, are you folks ready for your first comic? Are you ready? Your first comic, if you see the program, he is the best dressed person. He is awesome. Please give it up for Mr. Charles Young.
All right, no pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself taking this class because this is something I've wanted to do for a very long time. I wanted to do stand-up, and I didn't really know how to do it. And I've had problems with memory. It was a big theme of this whole thing, and I thought maybe if I did this, that I would remember my set, and it still hadn't worked. I am excited to be a part of this. I really am. See, there again. I forgot that joke. No, I'm excited to be a part of this. Huh. Unfortunately, I've completely forgotten my set, even though I tried to remember it by rubbing it on my head. It didn't work. See, when we practice this a lot, and this is exactly how it went. No. It's a lot harder to remember things when you read and write and perform and rehearse over the course of 3 months. You think you would remember it. And to be honest, I still don't. So I was just 10 years old when I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. Is anybody shocked? Or at least that's what I've been told. I wasn't paying attention. My diagnostic paperwork is wild. It reads more like a Comedy Central roast than a medical document. You would think that I wrote this stuff down, I would remember it. So I was referred for diagnostic testing when I was 10 because there were these deep concerns, which it looks like there still is. My parents and doctors and the president they were all concerned that I wouldn't be able to pay attention, I wouldn't be able to remember things, and they're right. So I do think that these concerns were blown a little bit out of proportion, not much, but a little bit out of proportion. Well, I'm going to say this. The joke was really funny, I promise. Just take my word for it. Now, you may have noticed I said attention deficit disorder, that I left out the word hyperactivity. And the reason I left it out is it turns out there's a total cure. For me, it was turning 30 and having 2 kids. And having ADD isn't a death sentence unless you're trying to remember a set in front of people that they all came to see. I'm actually a Guinness World Record holder for the fastest to lose their car keys. About 1/10 of a second. So, something I do hear a lot is that when people get distracted, they like to say, "Oh, I have ADD." And there is a way that you can tell that you actually have it. Every conversation starts, "Did you just hear a word that I said?" Which is a weird way to start a conversation. I've been described as sensitive, jittery, and disheveled, which is medical jargon for the perfect catch. So it took my wife and I 4 years to get married, and it took us a year after that to go on our honeymoon, and it took me about 11 seconds to become a dad. My wife's not laughing. I thought it was funny. I swear that, speaking of my wife, I swear that she has this superpower to remember things. She remembers when the bills are due. She remembers the fact that we have kids. She even remembers their birthdays, which anytime I've been asked what my kids' birthdays are, it's a pop quiz, and I haven't studied. So my wife and I, we have sort of a traditional relationship. She likes to pack the lunches for the family every day, and I like to forget to do the dishes. So my therapist recommended that I get another therapist because the laundry needs cycling and the kids' diapers need changed, and she would really like me to stop calling her my therapist. Recently, my daughter was diagnosed with autism, which is a relief to me because it means she didn't catch my ADD. And one thing I've learned about being a dad is, especially with someone with ADD, I feel like a hypocrite anytime that I try to discipline my kids. A lot of the times I find myself, guys, if you guys don't listen to mom, that makes 3 of us. And behind me, usually the scene is my wife is anybody listening to me? Now, but before I go, I would like to say just a couple things. Words are so important. They're the most important tools that we have as humans, the most important tools we'll ever have as humans. My teacher told me when I was in 2nd grade, and forgive me, I'm going to have to paraphrase, it's been a couple of decades since I was 9. She told me that I was lazy and that I was never going to adapt to the real world if I couldn't pay attention, if I wouldn't be able to learn how to interact. And to her, I would like to say this. Have you driven on I-95? Nobody's adapted to the real world. So, please, if you take anything away from tonight, use your words to spread love and laughter, because I think we could all use a little more of that. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Charles Young. So I used to work for the crisis line in Vancouver. And the problem with the crisis line, as with many people in mental health, they have no money. But I solved the problem. They went out and got corporate sponsorship. But the problem with that is now they have to work commercials into their calls. Hello, you've reached the Coors Light crisis line. So you're angry because your husband left you for another woman. Well, hey, you can run him over with the new Dodge Ram truck. But I was, when I just wanted to, here's how bad it is with crisis lines. So I called the crisis line once, and I got voicemail. In which case they shouldn't call it a crisis line. They should call it a somewhat urgent, but let's not get carried away line. But I was, when I got on the lines first, because I was a volunteer there too, and it was like, I wanted to help so badly, but I didn't understand it. So I was talking to this guy. He's like, yeah, man, I'm really bummed out because I haven't been laid in 6 months. And like an idiot, I'm like, well, it's been a lot longer for me. And there's this beat of silence. He's like, what kind of a loser are you? So that was my experience on the crisis lines. But I also used to, be really honest with you folks. As someone with depression and bipolar, I did a lot of self-medicating. I did a lot of drugs. And I used to smoke pot. And is it legal in Virginia? No? Okay. It is? It is? Yes? No? You're not sure? No, really. You need to be sure before you roll that joint. I mean, this could end really badly. But we figured out, because we were really paranoid, of course, when you smoke pot, and we figured out that we thought the cops were listening to our phone calls. So we figured out a secret code that they'd never figure out. Hey, Bob, bring over a couple footballs. Make sure they weigh a quarter ounce. And this time, don't smoke them till you get here. And here's the deal. Okay, so there are lots of different drugs. Here is how to get rid of all drugs. Make the dealers comply with municipal, county, state, federal, health and safety regulations. They will be out of business in no time. They'll be like, what do you mean my crack house has to be wheelchair accessible? And there's no way these marijuana brownies can be gluten-free. And even Dr. Phil gets into it. Dr. Phil says, oh, he gets such great advice. He said, if you suspect that your kid is doing drugs, you should search him, give him random drug tests, look in his pocket, his backpack, and his wallet, and develop an open and trusting relationship. That's a quote. But we've told our kids, our kids need to know what's going on. So we've told them about our drug days. Actually, it's funny because kids today, they look at us and go, oh, you guys were such losers. We thought we were so cool doing drugs. But anyhow, they know. So I was walking down the street one day with Jonathan when he was 10. And he's like, Dad, if we were walking down this street in the 70s, would there be all sorts of strangers out here doing drugs? And I'm like, no, son. It would be people you know, like me and your mom. But like I say, you self-medicate. That's how you survive. That's how you cope with that's how I cope with having depression and bipolar. And I used to do a lot of LSDs in the 70s when it was mandatory. And Vancouver has a lot of mountains. And once I was looking at the mountains and I saw the trees jumping into the water, I'm thinking, no, this can't be happening. This isn't real. They're not wearing their bathing suits. But they are wearing their trunks. Hey, come on, I went out on a limb for that joke. Okay, fine, I'll just have to branch out. Anyhow, your next comic, she is a mother of 2. They've left the nest. She's busy trying to find herself. Give it up for Amy Payette.
I have worked full-time for my parents for 27 years. Alcohol is a necessary part of my life. They own a winery. People think because I work at a winery that I get free wine. If I got free wine, this business would be a sinking ship. Part of my job is farming. So people that know me know that every year I work outside all summer long. And yet for some reason, every year they insist on commenting on the color of my skin. Ooh, look how dark you are. Ugh, look at your tan. Now how am I supposed to respond to that? Well, look at you all pale and pasty. Winery visitors have unique expectations. They think because they purchase something from you, they are entitled to something free. I bought a bottle of Merlot. Do I get 2 free glasses? Do you go to Harris Teeter and buy a ribeye and get a free bag of potatoes? Just because my buddy Todd works at a bank, I don't see him handing out $20 bills. And speaking of free stuff, so in my experience with psychiatrists, they are not handing out free diagnoses. You have to pay to get the accurate ones. So I figured if I'm gonna have to pay for a diagnosis, I might as well go to a reliable source, WebMD. I typed in my symptoms: high standards and expectations, ambitious and driven, difficulty overlooking small mistakes, needing clear organization and structure. Do you know what WebMD diagnosed me as? Perfect. I'm so perfect, even my blood type is A+. Unlike people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, perfect people are very easy to live with. We're so helpful. Like going behind someone and fixing how they made the bed, or how they loaded the dishwasher, or how they vacuumed the living room. Turns out I'm not a mom, I'm an employee of the Merry Maids. And as far as my family's concerned, I work free. My daughter is studying psychology, and she frequently tells me, you need to ask questions, not tell me what to do, like unload the dishwasher. So I asked, how would you feel about unloading the dishwasher, or I won't pay for your next 2 years of college? I frequently tell my husband I don't know what I would do if something happened to him. He is 13 years older than me. I tell him I would not get remarried because nobody would put up with me. He just smiles and nods. I'm not sure if he's agreeing with me or if he's deaf. Okay, by applause, who here has gotten so drunk they peed in public? Yeah. Oh. The rest of y'all are in denial. You have to be very careful about how much you drink. I have had a 2-hour conversation with my children after 5 glasses of wine, and I wake up the next morning and don't remember that I have children. So I attempted a 90-day alcohol-free challenge. And you know what I learned? My parents/bosses still aren't giving me free wine. No, seriously, the people who have success with alcohol-free challenges understand the importance of getting everything out of your house, all alcohol out of your house. I have 927 bottles of wine in my wine cellar. Do you have any idea how difficult that was? To drink 927 bottles in 90 days? I take food and wine pairing seriously. Chardonnay and cornflakes are a favorite. I frequently enjoy wine with meals and food, but I try not to overdo it. So I abstain from alcohol on Monday mornings at breakfast. Unless it's Chardonnay and cornflakes. I am also very good at evaluating wine and very vocal if I find something disgusting. My feedback has not been appreciated on Sunday at the church altar rail. And what is up with those bland crackers they give you as a palate cleanser? Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Again for Amy Piette. Yeah, so I've been having these dreams lately. I have one dream, recurring dream that I'm doing a gig. I forget all my lines. I run crying off the stage. My psychiatrist calls this an anxiety dream. I call it my last show. And I had another dream. I get night terrors, and I was dreaming. I dreamt that I was being chased by the Russian secret police, and I started screaming, and my wife wakes me. It's okay, David. Everything's fine. We'll be together forever. And that's when the nightmare started. It's a joke, people. It's a joke. But with this bipolar thing, so you have to be very careful about the words you use. So I said, I was giving this presentation, I said, I suffer from bipolar. Apparently you're not supposed to say that, I live with bipolar. But that just sounds like I have a roommate. And she makes a terrible roommate. She leaves her stuff all over my side of the counter, toothbrush, toothpaste, mania. But it's like having a teenager. And what I want to know is, when can I claim bipolar as a dependent on my taxes? But the other thing, I was doing this other conference, right? And I put in my bio, and I always do this on purpose, just to piss people off. But David suffers from depression and bipolar. I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. It's too negative. I'm like, oh, you want me to be positive about it. David loves hiking, skiing, and wallowing in despair. When not riding his mountain bike, he delights in hiding under the sheets, weeping uncontrollably as Celine Dion's Titanic plays in the background. Suffers from bipolar. They suffer from... Oh, and I found this great drug-free way of overcoming depression. It's called winning the lottery. No, really, I think the government should do a study where they get a group of depressed people and give them each $1 million and just see what it does for their mood. And in the interest of science, I'm offering to go first. But with my luck, I'd get in the placebo group. And back in the old days, I used to get my drugs from a dealer. And now, of course, I get it from a pharmacist. But I prefer the dealer because he has tried all the drugs he sells. Can you imagine if pharmacists had to do that? All right, guys, this week we're trying all 342 laxatives. Next week we start on birth control. Then again, who needs birth control when you're on 342 laxatives? Yeah, it's really odd. So, I have to tell you a little bit more about my kids. Oh, I'm a grandfather now. I'm a grandfather. Yeah? Oh, thank you. I'll get that. But it's great being a grandfather. I can stuff little Isaac full of Skittles and then hand him back to his parents. And when they say, "Why is he so hyper?" And I'm like, "Oh, it must be your parenting style." Well, my son Jonathan is great. When he was 4 years old, they asked him to do Christmas pictures, his class. I'm sorry, grade 4, was it grade 4? No, he's grade 4, right? So all the other kids are drawing presents and elves and stuff like that. My kid, the idiot, draws a picture of Santa getting busted for turning the North Pole into a crack lab. So the teacher decides she wants to have us in for a little chat. So we get there, and my wife immediately explains, Jonathan's dad is a stand-up comic, and Jonathan is just trying to follow in his dad's footsteps. And when the teacher said she didn't think that was very funny, my wife said, well, we didn't say his dad was a good stand-up comic. Anyhow, folks, let's get your next comic. She's witty, she's giddy, she's gay. Give it up for Kirstan Knipple.
That's me. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people. So before any of you ask, yes, my last name is Knipple. The K is not silent. What do you get when you add an alcoholic father, a depressed mother, and several abusive relationships? It's me. Hi. I'm the problem, it's me. I never really did come out of the closet. I don't have a big coming out story. I'm so clumsy, I just kind of fell out. So I work a full-time job. I work for Encompass as a family support partner. I also run my own nonprofit organization. And I'm also a single mom of 2 wonderful children. People often ask me, so Kirstan, when do you sleep? I don't. I have apnea. So when do you breathe? I don't. I have asthma. So when do you go out? I don't. I'm broke. Speaking of being broke, Can someone please explain to me why my apnea machine and my inhalers cost hundreds of dollars? I can't even afford to sleep or breathe. I'm pretty sure I can pinpoint just when my trauma started. When I was 6, I lied to my mother, and to get back at me, she painted the bottoms of my feet green and told me that the leprechauns did it. And people really wonder why I'm so messed up. Speaking of my childhood, when I was 18 months old, I had a femoral seizure and was hooked to a ventilator. Doctors told my parents if I ever came off it, I'd be a vegetable. Joke's on them, because I am fruitier than a fruit basket. I guess you can say that I'm a pretty person. Pretty fat, pretty funny, and I'm pretty much a smart ass. The last time that I went dancing, someone told me to shake what my mama gave me. Well, you see, my mama gave me a lot of trauma. And unfortunately, there's no shaking that. A coworker asked me the other day to cut something in a straight line. Not really sure why she asked me, because I can't do anything straight. When I finally started seeing a therapist a few years back, I had several people tell me, "Oh, Kirstan, you must love that. You get to talk about yourself for a whole interrupted hour." So my doctor once asked me if I exercise. I then turned to her and asked if running from my problems count. Later on, when she did my breast exam, I told her that was as much action as I'd gotten in a while. Needless to say, the nurses make sure to have coffee now before they see me. I am not sure who in their right mind let me have children. I can barely take care of myself, well enough to other people. I promise you guys, I used to have hair. So, recently I came to the realization that if I ever do get kidnapped, that as long as they have Diet Coke and food for me, I'm good. To be honest, I could use a vacation. But without food and Diet Coke, good luck, because I'll talk so much that they'll pay my sisters to take me back. Now, if my sisters will take me back, that's another story. Before I finish this set tonight, I'd love to thank all of you for being here. Love to thank my lovely bosses at Encompass and all my friends and family who came to support me. But most of all, I'd like to thank all my abusive exes, my depressed mother, and my alcoholic father, because if not for them, I would have no material. Thanks, folks. I've been great.
Give it up again for Kirstan Knipple. So anyone here see a psychiatrist? No? Good, right on. And of course the comics all applauded. I see a psychiatrist, and I have a problem with the word psychiatrist. I was on the way to therapy, or I was on the way to my psychiatrist, and I was talking to this woman. I said, "I'm on the way to my therapist," so she didn't think I was crazy. And then I realized how ridiculous that was. I mean, after all, she is my wife. But my first psychiatrist wasn't great, and I could tell when his prognosis was good luck and a referral to another psychiatrist. But I like to have fun with my psychiatrist on my psych evaluations. One of them said, "Do you have any medical conditions that run in the family?" And I'm like, "Yeah, death." And then he asked, "Do you see things that other people don't see?" And I'm like, "That's funny. The alien standing right behind you asked me the same question." But actually, we just recently got a financial planner for my family. Problem is, we don't have any money. But he's really enthusiastic. He's like, "Dude, you got plenty of room in your 501k. And it's like, "For what? Despair?" And he's like, yeah, if we add, let's transfer $14 worth of stock, because then it'll be worth, let's see, 25,000, 35,000, $14. But I also am an environmentalist, and I'm into green burials. Have you heard of these? Green burials, I love this. I now have 15 guys in my compost pile. Yeah, my rhododendrons have never looked happier. But I am a terrible flyer. I mean, I fly a lot, but I'm a terrible flyer. I was doing this one gig in northern Canada, in northern Ontario, and I was in this little plane. I could feel every bump and every jolt. I was so freaked out. I actually saw Jesus and prayed to him, which is a problem because I'm Jewish. Do you realize how freaked out you have to be to hallucinate somebody else's God? And so I'm on the plane, I'm, help, help, we're all gonna die, we're all gonna die. And they're like, sir, stop that. We cannot leave the gate until after you sit down. But Canadians can always tell each other, because I was in Manhattan. If you've been to New York, you know that when it comes to crossing the street, they don't wait for the street light. They just wait till a critical mass is built up, and they just push and shove their way across the street. So that happened, and there's me and one other guy left on the curb, and he's like, so what province are you from? But yeah, so like I say, oh, that's what I was going to tell. So my wife comes from a redneck family, and we joke about it. She comes from a redneck family where they used to get drunk and traumatize each other. And I'm like, well, we're Jews, we're better than that. We don't need alcohol to traumatize each other. We do it with chicken soup and guilt. But growing up, we were the only Jews on our street. The rest lived in houses. But my dad, you know, he loved to bargain. He was like, he went to garage sales every Sunday and bargain. I thought it was part of our religion. You know, it's like instead of love thy neighbor, it was haggle thy neighbor. And I can just see him as Moses coming down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments. God was going to give me 12, but I bargained him down. But I used to be a motivational speaker. And that is a weird gig. It used to be if you climbed Everest, you could on the speaking circuit make like $30,000 a pop, a presentation. Then a blind guy climbed Everest. Then a guy with no arms climbed Everest, and now they just keep raising the bar. They're like, last year we had the guy with no arms. This year we want the guy with no arms and no legs. And the agent's like, well, I'm sorry, he's booked solid. What are the disabilities you have? Well, I don't know, you can have the guy with erectile dysfunction. But he only made it halfway up. All right, folks, your last comment. Please give it up for Kristy Piette.
Hey, everybody. I'm grateful to be here and to know where here is. It's special for me tonight because tomorrow is my sober birthday. Hi, my name is Kristy, and I am a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. And what that means to me is that I haven't found it necessary to use any alcohol, chemically mind-altering substances, or to be hogtied by 4 deputies. True story. I grew up in a big family, and our house only had 1 phone and 1 bathroom. It got pretty competitive. It was like a play. You had to audition to use the toilet. I wasn't the best actor. That may explain my affinity for urinating in public while intoxicated. My dad, though, he was an amazing human. Much better than me. He lied about his age to fight the Nazis. I ran away and lied about everything to follow the Grateful Dead. My dad volunteered on a regular basis to help the homeless, whereas I volunteered on a regular basis to become homeless. I am the middle child of 7 daughters and got a lot of hand-me-downs. hand-me-down dresses, hand-me-down pants, a hand-me-down fake ID. I became the DB in high school, the designated alcohol buyer for the upperclassmen. I became really popular with the jocks. I became popular with the nerds, popular with the court system. I was a pretty good driver, just a few minor issues, like speeding, swerving, and driving down a one-way street the wrong way. And the faster I drove, the better I was. But unfortunately, the cops disagreed. Yeah, that was the night of my first WI. Back in the day, they used to print your driving record out. Mine was 4 pages long. I didn't know the DMV printed autobiographical novels. It was an all-day event there at the DMV. Because of all the DWIs I got, jail was like a revolving door. Upon entry, I would request D block, day room, top bunk. True. There is a reason for that, though. I controlled the TV. But the correctional officers liked me so much, they would throw in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. I never had money on my books when I was in jail to buy sweets from the canteen, so I had to get creative. I learned how to make bras from underwear, makeup from Kool-Aid packets, and I gave great massages. But the correctional officers soon shut my business down. I think I rubbed them the wrong way. And I think they figured out how silly they looked in that grape eyeshadow I sold them. In the early 80s, I worked for a construction company as a timekeeper on the job site. And the requirements to being hired were to have a hard hat, steel-toed boots, and to be old enough to buy the quit-in-time beer for the crew every day. Well, the boss was good with 2 out of 3. I've always been a hard head anyway. That was true, too. Being an active alcoholic took a toll on me, both physically and mentally. So I decided to check myself in to someplace for a little R&R. Turns out I needed the correct password to get admitted. I figured it out, though, and then I quickly got escorted to a 72-hour holding retreat. But it had a lot of perks. I got a fancy ID bracelet, some new slippers, and a really cool backless peekaboo gown. I still wear that gown on special occasions, though. Yeah, I'll bring it out. One of the lessons I've learned in life is it's not a good idea to say I do when the both of you can make a drug test light up like the 4th of July. Not good. But I did get 2 amazing children from that marriage. Those little angels, they would do anything for the mama. They loved helping me around the house. I'd have them poop scoop the yard, then clean their gerbil's cage, and then immediately bake their daddy some cookies in their Easy Bake Oven. Disclaimer, it wasn't raisins in his cookies. That wasn't true. I've always loved going to concerts and music festivals. I'd love to tell you about all the amazing shows I attended in the 80s, but it was the 80s. Oh, this one's blank. So that must mean it's time for 80s flashback montage. I bet that was as good for you as it was for me. When frolicking around attending those concerts, I always managed to lose my car. I could never, even, especially in the parking lots. But nowadays, I still enjoy live music, but I'm smarter now. I use a smartphone to take a picture of where my car is parked. Unfortunately, it's always in selfie mode. People have asked me if I could change anything about my past. Would I? I've thought about this long and hard. And yes, I would. I would demand a teal-colored jumpsuit instead of that unflattering orange one. Being a woman in long-term recovery from substance use and mental health issues, I am stronger, happier, and the police no longer chase me. I now chase the police to collaborate with me on community events, or as I like to call it, speed dating. As a peer advocate, I sometimes support my people by going to court with them when they have to go to court. The first time I did this, Judge Ashwell looked up, saw me, looked at his cases on his desk. I knew he was looking for me. And for the first time, I didn't have the urge to run. He gave me the thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Another round of applause for Kristy Piette. So yeah, we're here to tell our stories, and one of the things that one of the things in Stand Up for Mental Health is you're not allowed to make fun of a certain disorder unless you have it. So each week I get a different diagnosis. Yeah, next week I'm playing a menopause convention. So before we go, I'd like to leave you with some thoughts. I have this vision of where we need to be as a society, and that vision is, people are working together, right? Someone comes in one day and says, I've got a headache, and it's no big deal. Everyone can handle it. People say, well, would you like a tea, an aspirin? Do you need to sit down? Someone needs to be able to go into that exact same workplace and say, my voices are a bit loud today, or I'm right on the edge of a panic attack, and it needs to be greeted exactly the same way. No big deal. Would you like a tea, aspirin? Do you need to sit down for a while? And the gap between where we are and where we need to be, inside that gap is all the prejudice and the stigma and the discrimination that we at Stand Up for Mental Health are educating people about. When I was hospitalized, nobody spoke of mental illness. There was just this silence. But when people are silent, it pretty much says it all. It said, this is a horrible thing. Don't talk to anyone about this. And when I left that hospital, I just felt broken. I felt like I would never be whole again. I was so ashamed of myself. I would literally see people that I knew previous to getting hospitalized walking down the street towards me. And I would run around the block to hide from them. I did not want to be seen. I would say over and over and over, I am nothing. I am nobody. I am invisible. And that's how I lived for almost 20 years. I went from being one of those really annoying, obnoxious class clowns to vanishing for 2 decades. And then I fast forward to today and think what a difference it would have made in my life to see folks like you saw come up on stage and do stand-up comedy. I would have thought, wow, so this is proof that recovery is possible. So we are on the web at standupformentalhealth.com. There are dozens of videos of comics that I've trained from here to Australia and back. So it's a great place to go when you want some inspiration, some laughs. If you know someone who's going through a rough time, tell them, you know, you may feel right now like you may never get better, because that's how it feels sometimes when you're in that place. But take a look at what's possible. If these folks can do it, so can you. And I mean, watch our videos. You know, it's really discouraging. So we'll put up this really cool video. It'll get like 12 hits. And then at the same time, a video like cat riding vacuum cleaner gets like 4 million hits. Actually, our cat is depressed. We had to put her on kitty antidepressants. The signs were obvious. We came down one morning and she had written a suicide note in her litter box. But it was really hard to read because it all clumped together. So I train groups. Oh, great, the laugh keeps going. That's great, thank you. I train groups of comics like this all over the world, so please, if you work for an organization that wants to do this, please think of me. I also do conference keynotes. This is my shameless self-promotion part of the show. This lasts about 45 minutes. I intend to go longer than the comics did for this show, but like I say, standupformentalhealth.com. Please think of me. And before we go, first of all, I would like to thank Jeanette Nord. Thank you for making this thing happen. Yeah, she spearheaded this thing. She came to all the class. Another round for Jeanette. Yeah. And I would like the comics to come back on stage and get their diplomas. Everyone gets it. Come on, you guys, come up on stage. Come on up. There's Kirstan Knipple, Charles Young, Amy Payette, and Kristy Piette. Stand up for mental health. Oh, thank you, folks. Wow, cool. Thank you very much. So hopefully see you around. Good night.